2, and 1.
Welcome to the City Council meeting of June 20th, 2024. I'm calling this meeting to order at 7:44 p.m. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Madam Mayor, there's no request under item A. Roll call will be Councilmember Davis,
Here.
Councilmember Lentz,
Here.
Councilmember Mackin,
Here.
and Mayor O'Connell.
Here.
Councilmember Cunningham is absent.
Can we fix the tremendous echo?
It's the door, I think.
It's just the door?
I think we just need to close the door. Cool.
Thank you. And I do want to say our apologies for starting a little bit late. We had some technical difficulties.
Is your mic on?
Can I get a report out from the closed session, please?
Mayor, we're having a little trouble hearing you. The city attorney may not have heard that.
Can I get a report out from closed session?
Closed session?
Test, test.
Oh, yeah, all of ours are on.
They're all out.
Where is our ASL person when we need it?
Yeah, right? We need an interpreter.
Check, check.
Are they back on? Great. Can we get a report out for closed session, please? Tom, you're muted.
Oh, my goodness.
Tom, you're still muted.
Mayor, maybe I can just fill in.
Okay, yes, if you could, please.
City Council met in closed session, heard one claim, provided direction, heard a update on a lawsuit, and provided direction.
Thank you. Can I get a first and a second to adopt the agenda as it stands?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great. That is going to move us to item B, which is awards and presentations. And tonight, the City of Brisbane is issuing a proclamation recognizing City Manager Clay Holstine on his well-earned retirement from the City of Brisbane. Whereas the City of Brisbane, California, has been fortunate to benefit from the dedicated leadership of Clay Holstine for nearly 26 years. And whereas Clay Holstine has served with distinction as the City Manager of Brisbane, marking the longest tenure of any city manager since Brisbane's incorporation in 1961. Whereas Clay Holstine is the longest serving city manager currently in office, the second longest serving in state history, and the longest serving ever in San Mateo County. And whereas under his steadfast guidance, Brisbane has witnessed significant growth and development, including the successful completion of numerous infrastructure projects that have enhanced the quality of life for residents, such as the community pool, Silver Spot Nursery, School, Brisbane Dog Park, Mission Blue Center, Park Lane Extension, Brisbane Community Park, renovation to the Public Works Corporation Yard, Tunnel Avenue Bridge, and the remarkable new Brisbane Library. And whereas Clay Holstine's exemplary leadership and managerial skills were honed through his prior roles as Assistant City Manager in Medford, Oregon, and city manager in Reno, Nevada, as well as his invaluable experience as a management consultant to local governments. And whereas his commitment to excellence in public service is evident through his educational background, including a bachelor's degree in political science and government from UC Berkeley and a master's degree in public administration from Portland State University. And whereas Clay Holstine has played a pivotal role in the establishment of key committees and departments within Brisbane, notably the Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, and Accountability IDEA Committee, as well as the foundational work in creating Brisbane's Park and Recreation Department, the North County Fire Authority, Joint Powers Authority, and his pivotal role as co-director on the Advanced Life Support Joint Powers Authority. And whereas with over 44 years dedicated to city administration, Clay Holstein's unwavering passion for public service has left an indelible mark on the fabric of Brisbane.
Whereas, excuse me? There's,
Okay.
okay. So should we continue or do we need to fix that?
You could continue.
Okay, all right. Whereas Clay's door was always open to explore new ideas and work on strategies for dealing with complex issues. He took a team approach to help guide the council to create the policies that have made Brisbane a wonderful place to live and work. His leadership style of empowering the council, staff, and citizens to be active participants in the shaping of our city has strengthened our collective efforts for a vibrant, thoughtful, and resilient community.
Whereas Clay Holstine has represented Brisbane with dignity, foresight, honor, and championing our cause, we are beyond eternally grateful. But with consideration to the number of contentious situations Clay confronted on a daily basis, we give reverence to his unflappable, calm demeanor and ability to diffuse situations with the admonition, "Let me get back to you on this." And where City Manager Holstine reserved his wry sense of humor for moments we least expected it, we proffer great admiration for his impeccable sense of timing. And whereas City Manager Holstine now ventures into a new realm, insulated from the chaos of city government, we urge Clay to remember that this is not the finish line. This is the starting line. We wish him calm, composure, and fulfillment of his lifelong dreams on his new life's journey with our deepest affection, best wishes, and gratitude.
And whereas Clay Holstein's nearly 26 years of distinguished service as city manager brought forth a wealth of knowledge and a talent for negotiation that secured significant wins for Brisbane. Clay earned both the respect of friend and foe of the city of Brisbane and mastered one of the most difficult skills to attain, effective leadership. And whereas during his tenure, Clay fostered a collaborative culture within City Hall and cultivated a highly skilled and dedicated team. Never missing an opportunity to crack a joke, Clay cut the tension in even the most high-stakes meetings with his sense of humor. His approachable demeanor and inspiring leadership have recentered councils and helped them develop greater collaboration to accomplish their goals.
And whereas Clay has always shown calm leadership as his style, this worked as a much-needed steady rudder, steering us all through some very rough waters and times. And whereas his thoughtful approach to every situation instilled much confidence in his staff and all the city councils that he worked with, and whereas Clay led with integrity at all times, he showed his colleagues that this style of leadership is how to get things done the right way the first time around. He leaves very big shoes to fill.
And now, therefore, I, Terry O'Connell, Mayor of the City of Brisbane, along with the City Council, do hereby proclaim our heartfelt gratitude and appreciation for Clay. For his nearly 26 years of exemplary service as City Manager, We commend his tireless dedication, visionary leadership, and unwavering commitment to the betterment of our community. Congratulations.
I want to thank all of you for pronouncing my last name correctly. That
Woohoo.
doesn't happen all the time.
It took us 26 years.
It did.
Clay, would you like to join us up here for a moment? We have our sentiments framed for you, very big, for a nice place on your wall. And then we have a small, we want to give you this Giants jersey to wear proudly as a small token of the City Council's appreciation.
I can't get rowdy to talk to you.
And then we have a canvas facsimile of it that we can actually have members of the public and your staff sign, so you will never forget this wonderful time you've had with us.
So is that for Barry Bonds?
For the number of
The number of years, but it's appropriate that it's also Barry Bonds' number, because you're a superstar also,
All right, ready?
Without steroids.
and without steroids.
Just barely.
At least that we know.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Would you like to say any words at this time, or do you
That's
want to
so
wait?
cute. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so we're going to break for refreshments before the public gets to speak? We need to break because we have some technical difficulties, so Zoom is not live. So we are going to start the refreshments and take a little break now.
First round's on me.
Welcome back, and we are so sorry for the interruption that we had with technical difficulties. We're going to continue where we were, and we're going to move on to comments. And do we have Saul Miranda here? Please come up.
Hello, Council and Mayor. Hello, can you hear
Then
me?
you don't have to lean
There
over.
you go.
All right, awesome. So my name is Saul Miranda from Senator Becker's office, and today I am delivering a resolution to City Manager Clay Holstine, and this is on behalf of Senator Becker and also Assemblymember Diane Pappin. So the resolution states that Clay Holstine be extended deeply appreciation for his dedication and contribution to the people of the city of Brisbane, and convey best wishes for all the richness and reward of an active and productive retirement. So thank you so much for your service here in Brisbane. And I shared a little story with him earlier that when I took on this role here at with Senator Becker, he was one of the first people to have a conversation about cities and just kind of get more familiar with these areas, even though I'm native to the area of Bayshore specifically. But I really am grateful for the information that he shared with me about Brisbane, because that information still sticks with me today, and his guidance and his wisdom. So thank you so much, and a best retirement to come for you. Thank you.
Thank you. And next, if we could have San Mateo Supervisor David Canepa.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you to the council. I'm delighted to be here. It's a momentous occasion. Your service is unparalleled throughout the county, and what you've been able to do, and you think about it, I see a lot of former council members and present council members, is to really lead. Because all of us have, as elected officials, we're special people. And we all have different priorities. We have different ways to go about things. But a true city manager really knows how to navigate with the board. And really, the way you've led the construction projects, dealing with the issues, probably one of the most complex land use issue in not the state of California, but I certainly know in the Bay Area, was the Baylands. But your work, your staff, and I think about, when you look at a leader really motivates staff and prepares people to put them in positions. And I've looked at your staff and how your staff has carried yourself. They've worked with our office on numerous occasions, but I think the word professional really comes to play. And so we've declared it in the great county of San Mateo, Clay Day.
Yes.
So Clay,
was
why don't you
hoping
get on up
someone
here
would.
and get this proclamation signed by all the Board of Supervisors. Let's give them a round of applause for Clay Day in San Mateo County. I think I've done this before. Let's not block the mayor. No,
Oh.
that's never a good idea.
You want me to stand up?
Yeah. No, just sit down and then I can get you guys seated. All right. Clay Day. 1, 2, 3. Okay, got it. And then stay there, Clay. Go.
Out of order, but
I know.
We won't tell anyone.
Okay, 1, 2, and 3. Got it.
There you go, man. We got a lot of blank wall space.
Yeah.
I know that we have one former council member that's standing by on phone to call in, or is he able to come in on Zoom now? He's calling in from a foreign time zone, so we're making allowances to go out of order. Okay, well, hopefully he can notice that we're back on Zoom when the time comes. Great. So I'm going to move on to, I do have one slip from Stephanie Shakovsky. Would you like to come up and say something? Please.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, honorable City Council members. My name is Stephanie Shakovsky. I'm head of government relations for the Baylands Project. I'm here tonight to pay tribute to your retiring and peerless city manager, Clay Holstine. There are 3 rules to being a great city manager. And unfortunately, no one knows what they are. But, yet, Clay is a shining example of a really great city manager. And trust me, few things are harder to put up with than shining examples. And while I have the microphone, for once here, and if the Right and Honorable City Council will indulge me, I'd like to mention just a few highlights of Clay's 25 years of public service. Let me see if I can. So in 2008, Clay steered the city through the great financial crisis when the economy contracted and state support evaporated. Clay provided leadership, fiscal intelligence, and a steady hand at the help, guiding the city through those very perilous times. In 2018, he led the city and the community through the passage of Measure JJ, again, providing his leadership skills, his sense of humor, and his ability to work through complicated community issues with an uncanny skill to truly listen to all sides with intelligence, empathy, and sorry, Clay, I can't read your handwriting here. But all joking aside, Clay, it's been an honor and a complete joy to work with you over the years. And the Baylands team wanted me to let you know that there is a shovel with your name on it when the Baylands breaks ground, if any of us should live so long. Clay, thank you for your service and best wishes for your retirement.
Okay, I believe we do have a special member of the public. Please go ahead.
Hello? Can you hear me?
We can.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't see anything, but anyway, I would have loved to have been there, but obviously on a family vacation and won't be back until, I don't know when I get back. Carolyn's telling me to turn on my camera, but I don't see anywhere I could do that at. And well, hold on. Boy, this is tech.
All the kids must have gone to sleep already.
Did we lose him?
Carolyn's trying to direct me here, but I'm not seeing nothing. There's nothing pulling up on here. Oh, wait a minute. Here we go. Hold on. Okay.
We've all had technical difficulties.
Yay! Oh, wait, you muted yourself, Clark.
Oh,
Good.
You can see me now?
We can.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I can't. So, okay. Well, anyway, Clay, this is to Clay. It's not to anybody else, but, Clay, I was on the council. I had the pleasure of being on the council when we hired you. And, I remember when we hired you, and I remember your first day on the job, and I took you to all the businesses on Main Street. I mean, through the years, we've had a lot of tough decisions to make, but also we had some rather fun and light times. And your first day, I really remember. It took you to introduce you to the owners of the hardware store and the liquor store, and then we went into the Brisbane Inn. You got to meet Nino, and Nino didn't have a favorable outlook on the city at all, but that went well. We already made it all the way up to Midtown to meet John Chu, and I introduced you to Chu, and the first thing he says is, when you guys have your city council meetings, everybody parks in my parking lot, so you pay, right? And I'm going, oh God, how's this going to turn out? Because kind of really put you on the spot, and I wasn't expecting that. And you go, well, and you handled it with great diplomacy and said, well, let me check into it and see what I can do. And
Famous
then
line.
you find out a week later, you tell me he doesn't even own it. He didn't even own the parking lot, man. He's telling me to pay and he doesn't own it. So that was pretty funny. Yeah, and there's just a lot of interesting times, and you've done such a great job for the city of Brisbane, and we're a great city manager. I mean, we really had luxury over the last 30 plus years. Robin Leiter came aboard, and she spent 13 years left, and spent 13 years there and left under her own accord, and actually stayed over to help you with everything that was going on. We had a lot of stuff going on, and now the same thing with you staying and leaving under your own accord and retiring, and bringing Jeremy in, and really kind of help him get on board, and what a luxury that is, and what a luxury that is for Jeremy, to be able to have you there, and also you're going to stick around in between your traveling and everything. But I really enjoyed working with you as a city council member. I think you and I worked together the longest out of everybody on the city council. I spent 23 years there, but I think probably had to be what, 15, 16, 17 years. I don't know. I'm not sure of what the count was, but I don't have that many fingers. But anyway, Clay, it was really a pleasure working with you, and I'll see you around. We'll stay in touch. You haven't heard much from me about sports because I'm well, I shouldn't. Let's see, how do I say this diplomatically? I mean, because I like to say it the way I say it, but I'm really a bad sports fan. I'm horrible, and I would send Clay text of all this, stuff that you can't really talk about in public or repeat in public. But anyway, you haven't had any of those texts for a long time because I've kind of swore off the sports because I'm just not a good fan. And so anyway, anyway, it was really a pleasure, working with you, and I'm glad I'm off the council.
He loves to say that.
I do because I tell people, well, don't you watch? And I go, no, I don't, and I don't miss it. I spent 3 years too long on the council, and there's sometimes when you have to leave, you should leave, and that's with any job. And congrats to you for sticking around as long as you did, because I know you probably wanted to leave a little bit before this. So, but thank you for sticking around and helping the council navigate the waters of bringing on a really good new city manager in Jeremy. And I hope if Jeremy's there, I hope that you stay and are able to retire here. So anyway, congrats and good luck in your travels. So I'll talk to you later. Take care.
Thank you, Clark. So do we have any other members of the public in the audience that would like to speak who did not turn in a slip? I see Michelle Salmon has her hand raised.
almost 26 years. Clark and Clay and I were all born in the same year. So I know how old you are. But I'm up here to congratulate Christina because she finally took City Manager Holstine from Clay Day to Play Day. And so I hope you really have a wonderful retirement and really enjoy it because we're really going to miss you and we're probably going to call you all the time. And bug you. But thank you, Clay. And one thing that I really admired was that you never made up the answer that I know of. You always said if you didn't know, you'd find out. And that is very appreciated. That that level of integrity and honesty, when it would have been so easy, we all would have believed you, whatever you said, but that you didn't just say something that wasn't true. And so that is very appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Are there any other members of the public? Sherry, please.
So I had to be here tonight because I was here on Clay's first night when he was here on his birthday, and Steve Waldo sang happy birthday at his first council meeting. And I'm so honored to have been there the first time, and I'm sad that he's retiring, but I'm happy for Christina. Anyways, I've worked for several city managers in the last few years in my 8 years in Orinda, and at least 4 and a couple before that. So it is not easy to find somebody who's as great as Clay is. And while I was here, I highly respected him. I learned so much from him, and he was a lot of fun to work with. And I'll never forget all of our Giants games that we all went to together, and our staff meetings where we sat around we got a lot of work done and to figure out what's going on the next city council agenda, but we laughed. And it really is so important how the people here have stayed for so many years. That's a testament to a great city manager. So anyways, good luck, Clay, with your next journey in life. And he'll always be a dear friend to me. So
Thank you. Any other members of the public? Lee Panza.
Mayor O'Connell and City Council members, thank you for the opportunity to speak here, although I'm obviously going to be speaking mostly to Clay. Steve Waldo and I were on the council subcommittee that reviewed the recommendations from the consultant. I hate to use that C word, but the consultant who did the reviews for us to find someone to fill the large void that Robin Leiter was leaving by her retirement. And I'm sorry that she couldn't be here tonight, but we looked at quite a few people, and we felt that Clay, despite a personal issue, was worth taking a chance on, and I'm so glad that we did. And I think the rest of our community is so glad that we did. That was one of the most important decisions that I participated in. It worked out very well. So, Clay, thank you so much for the years that we've worked together, the years since, for, as has been said, shepherding an organization of people that actually get things done, that the public has no idea how things actually work and how much work it takes to make a community work smoothly. We've been through some trying conditions. We've been through some challenges, although none of you remember the last big recall that Clark and I remember. But the community is running pretty smoothly, and that's a testament to the efficiency of this organization that's been managed by Clay all these years. And I wish Jeremy, I hope I will get to meet him soon. I wish him the best. He's got some big shoes to fill. And Clay, you will always be remembered in this community for all the effort and for, just as has been said by others, just the way you handle things so efficiently, smoothly, impassionately, and yet dedicated to making this a better community. And it is. This is a very special place. And I thank all of you for your efforts. I know what it's like. So, Clay, thank you again. I'm glad to be able to speak here. I wish Jeremy the best, wherever you are. And I'm sorry, you deserved better than this, but you will be appreciated for many years to come. Thank you. And thank you.
Mitch, please come on up.
Madam Mayor, council members, I've had the opportunity to work with Clay since he got here, both in the private sector from my Hitachi days and from 2008 when I took over the reins of the chamber. My very first day in the chamber, I had a meeting with Clay, and he said, I will tell you, my door's always open, and I don't like surprises. If you can follow those two rules, then I think we'll get along just fine. And we did. And the chamber did well, and the city did well. And then I ended up working for the city as a contractor, not consultant, contractor. And one of the things that I've always noticed is his temperament has always been even keel. And, you know, I've seen managers in other cities where they want to let their ego take them on, where they're the big cheese, and they want to joust with the council. And we've never had that here. And that is great testament for how he runs his business, how he is as a person. And he let the council run their business, and he helped us staff implement what you wanted to do. So, you know, I know you have an ego. You may go home and kick the dog. I don't know. But, you know, summer vacation starts Monday. Enjoy it. Congratulations, Clay. It's been an honor.
Any other members of the public who'd like to say something? Seeing none in the audience, do we have anyone else online that would like to say something?
One hand raised from Prem.
Go ahead, Prem.
Okay, I'm not sure I can turn on the video for this, but even if that's not the case, that's perfectly fine. Clay, I just wanted to say thanks for all the work that you've done. When I got here to Brisbane, you were still a relative newbie at approximately 3 or 4 years. And, you know, with more than 25 years, a quarter of a century, you've been here in Brisbane, keeping the wheels turning. And I think you've done a great job. And I wish you the best of luck over the next years and to enjoy your retirement. So that's pretty much what I want to say. Thanks a lot for all that you've done for Brisbane.
Thank you.
I'd like to do a comment, public comment. For Clay's last council meeting, I'd like to make my first public comment at a city council meeting.
Start the timer.
Start the timer, Michelle. A few weeks ago, I was telling my family that Clay was retiring. Oh my gosh.
No, you need just
Jeez.
I was telling my family at breakfast that Clay was retiring, and my daughter Amanda, she's 9, she's like, "Why is Clay retiring? He is so young." And I was like, "What are you talking about? Clay's been working there since for 25 years." And she's like, "Oh, I thought you meant Clay Thompson." So, I don't know. Clay, you will be greatly missed in this organization. Thank you for sprinkling a lot of great, I don't know, fertilizer. I don't know what you would sprinkle. I don't have a green thumb. But I think you were able to sprinkle seeds of kindness and integrity. And we hope to keep some of those aspects alive, you know, despite you not being here in the organization. So I don't know what Clay Thompson is doing next season, but I hope what you're going to be doing is just enjoying wonderful times with your friends and family and loved ones.
Thank you. Okay, any other members in the audience or online that would like to speak? Seeing no takers, I'm going to ask if there's any closing comments from, or not closing comments, but additional comments from the council members.
You want to go, Madison, or? I want to go last. You want to go last?
She
Okay.
wants to go last.
All right.
Because then we'll need another break.
Yeah, no, exactly. Well, you know, first of all, I just want to thank Lee and Clark and the other council members that had the faith to hire Clay, because they put in motion these next 25 years with Clay at the helm of our city. And I've been here for about 30-something years, and I've seen a lot of change, and it's all been positive. And, you know, I've only received just great feedback from staff. And, you know, and this is to the staff. Clay always had your back, no matter what the public said, even stuff that came from us. Clay always had your back. And, you know, he had that style of empowering. He wanted you to thrive and to be creative, and because he knew that that enabled you to do your job to the best of your abilities. And the reason I bring this up is because, you know, we're all part of that ecosystem, right? We're all part of the same organization. And when you have employees that have pride in their work, right, and that comes from the top down, you get great services, right? Services that, you know, keep us safe, that, you know, keep us healthy and provide fun in the community. I've been on the council now for 15 years, and I guess maybe about my 3rd or 4th year, I started having weekly meetings with Clay. And they have been just wonderful engagements for me, you know, not only as a person, but also as a public servant too, because, you know, when you're in, as you said, Lee, you know, when you're in the seat, sometimes it can be tough. But sometimes it's also, you know, you're excited and you want to create. And Clay was there to be that person to listen, to take your ideas and then to work with staff and the rest of the council to make things happen. You know, our meetings were Tuesdays at 8:30, and maybe I came in at 8:30 on time, maybe 4 or 5 times. All the other times over the last 12 years, I was always late. And, you know, Clay never complained, right? And part of the reason why, you know, we just you know, why I came in at the times that I did was because it was like, when you're on the council, you have to have that separation, right? You have to have that boundary where you're the council member and the city manager is the city manager. But we were still friends, right? We never, you know, did, you know, like went to a ball game or, you know, or our wives, you know, and us never got together or anything like that. It was, but when we sat down together and talked about the things going on in the city, it was always professional, but it was always a friendship. And you know, but that was professional. And it really meant a lot to me and helped me to continue to serve. And I just, you know, from the bottom of my heart, Clay, you know, just thank you so much for just being a really good listener and always being fair. And another thing, you know, Clay never took sides, right? He'd listen to me and he'd give me good advice, but he never like said, okay, yeah, you're, you know, what you're doing is the way to go. He would listen and then collaborate with all of us. And that's just, very few people are that way. And it's just amazing. And just so appreciative of that. So I know you're going to have a wonderful time, you and Christina, getting out there and exploring the world, and super excited for you. And I look forward to actually like having perhaps a real friendship, you know, that isn't about the city's business, but just, you know, just the two of us. And so again, thank you for just being, you know, a great mentor and, you know, and the quarterback for our community. Thanks.
I guess it's my turn. I'm usually wordy, so I'm going to try to be a little brief today. I think everyone has said so much, it's hard to add to that. But I would just add that, Clay, you have etched yourself in all of our minds and hearts, and every room in this building. You will never be forgotten. And your calmness is just something that I've absolutely been astounded. And if you didn't go home and kick the dog, Christina, please make sure when he goes home tonight, he goes out and does a primal scream, because all I can figure is there's 26 years, it's all bottled up. So I think you know by now we're going to miss you. I think maybe what you don't realize is you're probably going to miss us. But I would ask one favor of your wife and your family. You're going to get calls from us. You're going to get, at times you might be, knowing you're going to be thinking, are they okay? Maybe I should just check in on them. And please make sure that Clay still remembers when the phone rings to say, I'll just get back to you. Thank you very much for everything, Clay.
So I'm going to preface this by saying that, like, under normal circumstances, I'm a crier. But in my third trimester, I'm really a crier. So we'll see. But you're just going to have to give me a little grace as the audience. It's truly difficult to fully express the incredible impact Clay Holstine has had on Brisbane and his exceptional performance as city manager. So I'm going to leave that task to my council colleagues, the public, and city staff. There's so much that has already been said, so instead I'd like to share a few personal stories that illuminate a different side of Clay that you might not know about. A vivid memory comes to mind. I was just 8 years old when I met Clay and his daughter at the park, picking up paint on fire hydrant restoration day. Little did I know, years later, Clay would have his own hydrant of honor outside City Hall, but I digress. This memory is more than just an introduction. It marked the beginning of a lifelong friendship with Clay's daughter, Caitlin. Katie and I formed a bond that has spanned over 25 years, making Clay an important part of my life since childhood. When Clay became city manager, Katie remained in Reno. Yet every night at 5 p.m., a dedicated phone call ensured they stayed connected. Clay wasn't just checking in. He was actively involved, helping with homework and offering unwavering support. Every Friday, Clay would drive up to Reno, pick her up, and drive her back to Brisbane for the weekend before making the trip all over again on Sunday. And I did the math, and that's about 1,000 miles a weekend. 1,000 miles of driving for 48 hours or so with his daughter. To Clay, Katie was worth it. As she matured, Clay flew Katie to the Bay Area every weekend. Although living in separate states, he would not let the distance get in the way of his commitment to his daughter. This is just a small example of the depths of Clay's dedication as a father. Katie has always known how deeply her father has loved her, not because of what Clay has said, but because of what he has done. He was an outstanding city manager, unquestionably the best Brisbane has ever seen. But he's been an even more phenomenal dad. It didn't take me long to recognize the special nature of this father-daughter bond. This sentiment only grew stronger with each year. Throughout my youth, Clay became a familiar face, taking me to countless Giants games. We'd watch a few innings, but Katie and I were more interested in exploring the ballpark. She was a seasoned veteran and knew all the vendors. We even prank called Randy's son once from the park payphones. Katie's summer birthday meant pool parties at Clay's parents' house in Los Altos. And one year as a gift, she got the new Beyonce album, and we blasted it for what seemed like an eternity. And Clay never protested. In fact, I listened to quite a lot of rap music in Clay's Jeep, and I would always glance to see if he was wincing or making faces, and he never was. And to me, he was the coolest, because my mom would never. She just would never. Lots of 94.9, lots of 106.1. It was the best car. In high school, I started trying to convince Katie to move to Brisbane and attend St. Ignatius High School with me. And thankfully, during sophomore year, she made the move. And this resulted in a rather unique perk. Clay, the city manager, became my driver to and from high school parties. And I seriously doubt that any other council member in the country can say that their city manager was their ride in high school. When I decided to run for office, I asked Katie for her blessing. I knew a win would fundamentally alter my relationship with Clay. And it did. He transformed into a wise mentor, a trusted confidant, and a reliable support system during tough times. He's always honest and straightforward, untangling me whenever I got myself into knots. And there are very few whom I trust as much as Clay. Our meetings were never devoid of humor. His impeccable comedic timing has endeared him to people of all walks of life. It's one of his many strengths. Moving on for a moment. During my single years, I started getting a lot of advice from people, as often happens when you've been single for any length of time. One thing I often heard was observe the relationships of others and identify examples of partnerships that you would like to emulate so that when the right person comes along, you'll know it. And while I took that advice, I also looked for something else. As much as I wanted the ideal partner, the most important thing to me was finding someone who would be an incredible dad. And Clay was my example of what unwavering love and support as a father should look like. And time will tell, but I believe I made the right choice. So thank you, Clay, for being the example. Clay, for nearly 26 years, you've served Brisbane with the utmost commitment. The countless late nights, the selfless acts, the many sacrifices, they all contributed to the impact you've made. Thank you. Your legacy, etched in Brisbane's history, will forever remain. We will see it at the library, at the Baylands, at Sierra Point, and City Hall. We will find ourselves saying, WWCD, what would Clay do? And in fact, you may get a phone call from time to time asking you that very question. And now, as you embark on a well-deserved retirement, you can finally utter the words I know you've always wanted to say. Madison, you're my favorite council member.
Well, I will say that there's no follow-up to that story.
geez.
So I just want to wish you all the best in your retirement, and thank you so much, and your family, for the sacrifices and the wonderful leadership you've given us. And so thank you. Would you like to come to the podium and say anything, or do you want to just sit where you are?
I've been relatively effective sitting here over the years, so I think I'll choose here. You know, at a time like this, you hear people say that they're lost for words or it's a surreal experience, and that's absolutely accurate from my experience. So I decided to write some stuff down so I don't sound like a blabbering fool and disconnected person tonight. I first of all want to thank all the council and the members of the community, former council members, for the wonderful thoughts and comments tonight. The last couple months, going to various different meetings and being recognized for my time in Brisbane has been really heartwarming to me. It's not something you really think about as you go through your career. You know, when you get towards the end and you feel the love and the appreciation, it's very heartfelt and very, very, very much appreciated. When I came to Brisbane, what most impressed me about the town was that it was a community that had elected leadership that was willing to take on difficult issues to the betterment of the community. Those issues ranged from things like the utility system and our rate structures to various development issues to a number of budgetary issues. The council never shied away from tackling those issues and working collaboratively with the staff. I much appreciated that because that wasn't always my experience prior to coming to Brisbane. Brisbane does not have a shoot the messenger mentality, and I appreciated that because I've seen that in other communities and how corrosive that can be to everybody that's involved. The other thing that impressed me about Brisbane was just how fiercely loyal the community members and the council members were to the town. How much they appreciated the town's history and were willing to fight for it. That was true 26 years ago. It's true today. I'd like to thank my family. Madison, you started me on this.
Sorry.
I'd like to thank my family, my wife, Christina, who we met here in Brisbane, my daughter, Katie, who came to me on this adventure, to make a new life. Camila, who has inspired me with her passion and her hard work. Tony, who has followed his mother's footsteps in environmental land permitting and is a devoted Brisbane resident. I'd also like to thank city staff. Over the years, some of the faces have changed, but the devotion to jobs and careers, the good humor they brought to their work, and the family atmosphere they fostered was a constant joy to work with and to lead. There were many times I walked around City Hall and I pinched myself how fortunate I was and how blessed I was to work with this group of talented people. Together, we didn't solve every problem, but we almost always made them better. In the past 5 to 10 years, I've had the privilege and joy to see so many new people come into our organization in positions of responsibility. They have instilled new energy and ideas. To be honest, it's one of the reasons I've stayed as long as I have, and one of the reasons it's so hard to leave now. I will continue to watch their contributions to this community and organization, only from a little bit of a distance from now on. Finally, if you'll indulge me for a moment, I'd like to recognize some people and names most of you do not know, but were so instrumental in my career. 3 city managers, all who had a profound impact on my early career development. I truly would not be sitting here today if not for their influence, guidance, and mentorship. The first is George Sandregret, the longtime city manager of Los Altos, where I grew up. He provided me with the first internship in city government and was a sounding board during my early career years in the profession. The second was John Thompson, veteran city manager who was my first boss in Medford, Oregon. He took a chance on someone who was very green, but someone who had a lot of enthusiasm. I learned so much from him in my first 7 years working in a city manager's office. And finally, Hal Schilling, city manager in Reno, who guided me into my first city manager position. I would also like to take a moment to thank my mom and dad. Sorry. For their support in my education and my career. They did not always understand what I did, but my dad loved the places I landed. 2 of his passions were fishing and playing blackjack. Trips to Southern Oregon, abundant in its lakes and rivers for fishing, and to Reno for blackjack at the casinos were a regular occurrence in those years. My mother, because she was always there to pick you up when you fell and always there to listen with an open heart. While I look forward to staying engaged, this is the time to exit the stage, hand over the baton. I wish you all the best and Godspeed. Thank you.
Okay. Are we okay to continue? Or does anybody need a break? Okay. Great. That is going to move us to oral communications number 1. And I do have a slip from Sherry Goodwin. Is she still here? No, looks like she's gone. Dana Dilworth.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and council members. Okay. Not on the agenda. On June 6th, there were 2 items on the agenda that the public deserves to know about. They are rezoning measures for the Brisbane Acres and citywide rezoning for the entire town. You continued the matters to July 18th, but I don't see the continuation on the city's public notice boards, nothing on the blast, nothing on city's latest news. Yet, every landowner deserves to know. There were members of the public that asked for it to be removed from the agenda for several reasons. These letters were not mentioned in the public hearing, but they contain information to give pause as to whether you have considered the matters fully. I thank you for asking staff to prepare fact sheets. Could you also circulate the 10-point sheet provided by Catalysts, a statewide organization researching the facts of the new housing laws. You can't just keep updating and rezoning for housing while ignoring other elements of the general plan. You still have land use regulations, 14D, to establish height limits due to geology and typography, but gave a false reason for the 35-foot limit in the acres. And LU4 asks you to consider articulation, which you have not. This subdivision ordinance may create landlocked parcels, but there's no definition for non-conforming properties. When a planning commissioner doesn't understand the concept of passing legislation in conformance with all the elements of the general plan, perhaps an education course to explain doubling the density from 0.72 to 1.2 and setting no limits to lot size is not planning, it's chaos. Removing all parking requirements within a half mile of public transit point is nonsense. Have you considered elders? The rezoning does not properly map lands in the acres that are now dedicated as open space. For this reason and many others, I ask that this be sent back to the planning department and protections via proper maps and safety regulations be put in place to protect our citizens and environment. More than your next door neighbor should be informed of deviations to the rule of Redwood City, deviations to the planning rule, as Redwood City properly notices their community about zoning administrator changes. Lastly, I ask that you have someone check for typos and references to sections that are now deleted. There used to be a cross-reference in the general plan, and my guess is that it needs to be updated and circulated as well. I look forward to the council's response, hoping you read these amendments before you pass them. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public who'd like to speak on an item not on our agenda tonight? Oh, oh, okay. Seeing no hands raised, we'll move on to the consent. There's no members online. Okay, we'll move on to consent. Can I get an approval on items C through G?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Are we ready to move on to item H, best practices?
Sorry. This item originated from your January 4th council workshop. You, at that time, considered some protocols to put in place this upcoming year. You then assigned a council subcommittee of Davis and Lentz to work on that. And over the past several months, the subcommittee has met on 3 occasions. The following guidelines are submitted to the City Council for consideration for adoption. These have to do primarily with land use applications. The first one is that once a land use and/or zoning application has been submitted, council members will not meet independently or have communication regarding the details of their proposed project, developer's proposed project, with an applicant or agent once an application has been received. Council members will notify the city manager and may request either the city manager's attendance or another staff person's attendance be assigned. The city manager will inform the rest of the council of the request. The second protocol would be that prior to an application, a council member may wish to meet or accept an invitation to meet with a business or an individual who wishes to seek a permit from the city that may ultimately come before the council as a whole. The next item was once an application has been submitted to the city, the council may wish to use its subcommittee process, which is subject to the Brown Act, to meet and discuss aspects of a project proposal. And then finally, All negotiations with applicants and/or agents are to be done through the city manager, who will use various staff, consultants, and/or legal resources to represent the city's interests. The city council will provide overall direction and ultimately review and approve discretionary permits and contractual agreements such as development agreements. The subcommittee suggests that a resolution be drafted to memorialize this protocol and that each council member be requested to sign the resolution. As new council members are brought in, they will sign a document acknowledging and agreeing to these rules. With that, I don't know if the subcommittee itself wants to report out, but that's a staff report.
Does the subcommittee want to report out on this?
And is there anything that you want to?
I have a point to discuss, but I'll wait till we have public comment,
Okay.
and then we can discuss it.
So I was under the impression that the subcommittee wasn't just going to look at best practices on meeting with applicants or potential applicants and, and the issues that could bring up, but more as protocols for the council in general, so that we have an idea of what is appropriate behavior from a council member and what is not. And I think that information is not in here, and maybe I was misunderstanding what we charged the subcommittee with.
Madam Mayor, I actually have the same impression. But
Okay.
if I may at this time, I think that this is a start. It's a good start. I appreciate all the effort that our interim city manager Holstine has put into this, but we also have a new city manager who may have input from his point of view, and he's the one that will be taking over the helm and working on these things. So I think it's just unfortunate this is coming before us tonight, because we're also talking about drafting this as something that all the council would sign, and we have one council member absent. And I think it's important to have a full discussion of the entire council on this. And I just think it's inappropriate to move ahead without the other council member here.
So shouldn't we not be discussing right now? We should be asking questions.
Well, mine was phrased as a question, and perhaps your question is being phrased, yours is being phrased as a question. Is it appropriate to move forward with this?
Well, that's one thing, but also in that I was also surprised when this appeared, in that we saw this, it's referenced back to January, but I was expecting kind of a council guidelines or code of conduct or something of that nature, is what my impression was of what you had requested, Madam Mayor. So I'm just kind of flummoxed here. It's not what I thought. And I've looked at other cities, and they have codes of conduct or guidelines. And I think that's, we've heard a lot in the past year about fairness, and how can you, as a council member or the staff or the public, know what fairness means unless you have kind of the Bible of this is what we're following. This is what's expected of you when you serve. And I think that it's time Brisbane have a code of conduct, and that I'd like to see council members all be part of drafting what goes into that and be willing to sign that. So it's an affirmation that we all follow it.
Okay. Are there any members of the public that would like to speak on this item? Michelle?
I really hadn't intended to speak tonight, but my recollection from that January 4th meeting is that there would be a code of conduct, and this is just one small part of it. And had we had a code of conduct prior to that, that meeting may not have needed to take place, and a lot of the heartache surrounding that need not have taken place had everyone adhered to a code of conduct, not just with people submitting applications, but in general, making promises that, or alluding to things that could happen that really couldn't happen or wasn't in agreement. So I do think you need to take this back and expand on it and rework it and include the what was discussed in the January 4th meeting about having a true code of conduct of what is appropriate discussions to have with citizens and with potential developers, et cetera. It is important. And as we go forward, I think also the new city manager would want to be involved in that, since he would be the person who, would be overseeing it the way that, Clay has taken the responsibility to over many occasions. So I think this is while there's some really good stuff in this document, and I think that it's great, it's definitely a leap forward. It does not cover everything that needs to be covered in a council code of conduct. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the audience who would like to speak, or anyone online?
No hands raised, Madam Mayor.
Okay, then we'll close the comments and go on to discussion. So, is this the subcommittee? Did they look at a general code of conduct, or just the best practices on reaching out to potential developers and in that context?
As I recall it, during the workshop, there was a robust discussion specifically about these items, and we went through as a group and we talked about what we wanted to see with respect to meeting with developers or taking meetings, and having the city manager present, or having the subcommittee being a representative if there was certain kinds of meetings. And so I remember, having a discussion about that, and we basically took those things that we had nailed down as a group and finessed the language and just brought that back. So anything that you want to see beyond that, I think there was maybe things that were insinuated in that meeting, but these were very concrete things that we as a group agreed upon. And we even said in that meeting, absolutely, I'll say right now I can do that. And so if you wanted to see something beyond this, that's not information that I have, or I just thought you wanted us to, to put what we had discussed very plainly into writing. So it might be helpful if there's some additional things that you want to see, that you could send them to the new city manager and we could get that feedback, unless you feel comfortable having that conversation right now.
I personally, I don't think we, I think it's good to find out that you guys were maybe not hearing everything that, or we didn't say it clear enough, or I didn't, on what the best practices or the code of conduct should look like, or how encompassing it could be. I do know that we agreed on a lot of the things that are in this document that, should be in that. But I think that I was certainly expecting it to go further into an actual code of conduct. And it sort of relates to some of the next discussions that we're going to have, as far as mayoral rotation and other things that could then be applicable if a strict rotation isn't followed. There's a reason why. And so I think that there can be a broader code of conduct than just best practices when dealing with an applicant. And I think that this is a really good start on dealing with applications and conversations where it's a perceived negotiation or a perceived conversation that could be taken by one party or another as negotiation. And it needs to be that, everybody's has the opportunity to be at the table or have a second or a third party to, make sure that the steps are being followed properly. And I think this is a really good start, but I would like to see before we move forward with a resolution or a code of best policies practices, I would like to see it have a little bit more of some generalities of other code of conduct issues.
You
A
know,
little broader.
If I may, as Madison has said, what you see before us is what we thought was the direction. Stepping into these other areas, can be very subjective, and so I think if we're gonna add other things, it should probably be a workshop that the council has so that every council member can express what they think is the code of conduct, because what your code of conduct might be different than mine, might be different than Colleen's, and so to say, hey, I think you're missing something here, go back to the subcommittee, it'd be like,
Yeah.
okay, what does that mean? Right?
Oh, I do understand that, and I do think that
yeah.
I think that certainly for a code of conduct to be effective and manageable, it would certainly need, some very specific language. You'd need to have HR involved. There's things that, to say perhaps, it's what if you're sanctioned by the fair political people, or you've, gotten arrested for a felony. I mean, there's things that could be considered code of conduct issues that can affect how you're perceived as a public official. And I'm not saying you, any of us.
No, I hear you. I mean, yeah.
And so I think that, and again, part of it is coming back to other items that are further on our agenda, as to reasonings for having, and what are, if someone were to be sanctioned or to be, so I think there's more to it, but I do think that a workshop could be appropriate to
I think it's
iron out
necessary.
some of these things.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and because the thing is like that you could just like run the gambit, right? It's like, okay, here's my list of
you were
100
jaywalking.
items.
You're jaywalking, and you're that
here's my
person.
code of conduct, all right? And if any council member does this, then what are the ramifications, right? And so I think we also need to look at, okay, how has it been over the years and the decades, how the council has conducted its business. And I think we just have to accept that there's going to be times when council members don't agree. And we're all human, and there's going to be times when we're going to, raise the volume up, and we're going to, have a little, bout. And then the dust settles, the emotions calm down, and then we get back to doing the people's business. And I think, I think we need to really evaluate that, right? Instead of, perhaps trying to, I don't know, like fit it all into a box that, quite frankly, is probably impossible. But this right here, though, this you can do, right? And these are the important things. And this was something that was raised when we had our reorg meeting, right? A council member made a comment, and based upon these items here. And that's why we then worked with staff to come up with these guidelines based upon the comment that was made, because there was, a misunderstanding of what potentially someone could do. And so we made these items here things that we should all commit to and then sign on, and be on board with.
Well, it's
Madam Mayor?
also very cut and dry. Yeah.
I was just going to say, I think from my point of view, I did a little just checking. So within the peninsula, it's like easily 3/4 of the cities have codes of conduct. You can go online and find all kinds of cities with codes of conduct. I think that makes you a stronger council. And in looking back at the past and councils before us, things happen, they kind of get resolved, they don't get resolved. This can make us a stronger council. If we don't disagree, and I appreciate that, Councilmember Lentz, if we don't disagree ever, there's something wrong. Disagreement can be a catalyst. So I don't even have a problem with disagreement. I just think that a code of conduct is a pact between us and staff and the public, and it's about expectations. And the areas where we get in trouble are assumptions without any agreement of what to expect. And so a code of conduct is, here's the expectations. And I would like that to be, I like the idea of a workshop. I think what would be helpful is, even prior to having a workshop, have every single one of us submit a list of topics that should be covered in this discussion. And go do it. It'll take you about 30 minutes of research. Go take a look at, some are very general things in a code of conduct, and others get, depending on the city, more specific. And think about what's important to you, that we all have a very clear understanding.
So
And I think it could be really healthy for us to do this.
Well, I think also like the city clerk could just provide us some examples from other cities in San Mateo County. That's probably a good starting point, so we all have the same information, versus you're more than welcome to do additional research. But I think that's just helpful if we have a packet that we can say, I like this bullet point on this city. What do you all think?
I think you're going to find it's a minefield, though, because unless Ingrid's going to print out, which I have printed out, the cities in the peninsula, and it's thick. I don't think you want an agenda staff report that thick. I think
they're very long codes of conduct.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Well, because it's in, there's many cities have council member, a packet for new council members and every year. And the code of conduct is often buried in many different sections, references to different things. So in some cities, here's a code of conduct, and in others, it's referenced in many different sections. So I think as a start, just as a dialogue for each of us to think about what might be topics.
Do you want to add, Ingrid, can cities forward theirs to you?
It's likely just a city council like orientation book. And that's like one of the pages or one of the sections in the binder.
Are you talking about our city council?
No, others.
Oh, in some it is, in others it was an ordinance adopted and amended over the years. In others, it was prompted by a meeting with a public meeting. There's all many different kinds of scenarios. It's really interesting to see, and it kind of reflects the community and what's happened in their history and what's important in terms of the direction. And sometimes it's been as a result of conflict, and sometimes it's kind of an affirmation of who they want to be and where they want to go. So we can make it whatever, little bit of everything.
Well, maybe you could provide some documents, Ingrid, that are accessible and not a million pages long, and then we can do additional research. Because we have something here, it might be a good starting point to talk about these bullet points. And I'm sure, obviously, this conversation is going to continue with Councilmember Cunningham present, but there's 4 of us here tonight. So I'd love to just get some feedback, if you wouldn't mind, on what we have here. I actually, have a suggested edit already, but I'm curious.
I would rather have Councilmember Cunningham here to go through that, because then she has no input. And I think it's important she be part of it.
Well, she will have input because we're going to have a workshop. We're going to discuss all of these other items, and we're not going to assign anything unless it's like a completed document, right?
Well, but if you go over this tonight, she's not giving us input on it.
Do you want to let us know what your suggested edit is here on
Yes.
this?
So on bullet point 4, it says all negotiations with applicants and or agent are to be done through the city manager, who will use various staff, consultant, and legal
Oh,
resources.
wait a minute, bullet point 4.
Well, you need this one. You need page 42.
Okay, sorry.
Okay. Do you want me to start over?
Yes.
Okay. All negotiations with applicants and or agent are to be done through the city manager, who will use various staff, consultant, and legal resources to represent the city's interest. The city council will provide overall direction and ultimately review and approve discretionary permits and contractual agreements, such as development agreements. And I just think, after thinking back about circumstances that we've had in the past, for example, the mayor pro tem, at the time, I think it was Clark and I,
Yes, it was.
we went and we met with Jerry Hill. And, given this scenario, in that situation, if it was playing out today, it may just be the city manager. And I think that there are instances in when it's really important for members of the council to be present, especially with the negotiations that we have coming before us. And I think that we could add some language and staff can finesse it. Something about unless the council decides that members of an appropriate subcommittee should be present, or mayor pro tem, or other council representatives, because I don't know that all of the negotiations should be left up to a city manager. I think we should build some flexibility in here that we have the discretion to have a seat at the table if we need.
So I think that's a really good observation about a prior situation, but this is only dealing with applications before the city, not in that situation where you were going to have a meeting with a lawmaker to persuade somebody of something, because that was something that was directed by the city council for you to go do that. We weren't privy to your exact conversation. But this document is geared to all negotiations with applicants. Jerry Hill wasn't an applicant, so that wouldn't even be applied to this.
Well, then maybe we need to adjust this language. It should say
I think we do.
applicants litigate. I mean, Karen had a meeting with High Speed Rail at one point, and she was there, with Boris and.
Let's not go there.
No, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
like, there have been meetings, there have been lots of different meetings that have occurred. And so I think that there's a history there of council members being present at certain types of negotiations. So if we want to put applicants, if we want to put,
Well, I think that there's different scenarios that different wording and language applies to.
Yeah.
And this is only dealing with really a hard, fast, somebody wants to do something, as in build something or
Permit applications.
permit applications. And so that's all we're dealing with in this scenario as I read it.
Yeah.
But like, we may want to have somebody at the table with Jeremy. If there are going to be negotiations that happen with BDI that aren't always going to play out here. And I think even in that scenario, or Orchard Partners or whomever,
Just having different
just
perspective.
having a little bit of flexibility. I'm just using the examples that I have in my memory, but I know that there are going to be things that are going to come forward. So I'm just suggesting maybe we can look at a little bit of flexibility in this language.
Well, I agree, because, in this language, we should be talking about subcommittees and their roles. But after direction is given by the council
Right.
for someone to act on our behalf within a certain amount of leadway.
Who's the representative?
Who's the representative? Who's the correct person to be involved in these discussions?
Right.
And, you know, we all can't be rogue people out there saying, you know, I'm going to go have a one-on-one with some applicant.
No, these would be with staff.
And with staff, of
Right.
course.
I mean, yeah, these are all the
But I
council
think
members.
the language,
you know,
does need to be finessed to cover more scenarios. For the application process itself, I think these are pretty good
Okay.
for a real application process.
Well, you know,
But
I'm sorry.
some things do need to be adjusted.
Yeah, you know, there was a meeting that Karen and I had with the executive director of MTC and ABAG when staff was having issues with their staff in regards to the Bay Area 2050 plan. And I think, you know, there can be those times when members of the council can be influential in a way that perhaps staff can't, right? And so we don't want, I think what Madison is saying is that, hey, let's not put one hand behind our back. Let's use all the tools, right? Because in that meeting, we were able to be influential in reducing those locations in Brisbane, primarily in the Baylands, out of that 2050 plan, which then ultimately, you know, had a major effect on our housing element. If those things, if that stayed the way that it was, we would have been really complaining about, you know,
Well, and on the same,
something that,
on
you know,
that
wasn't
same
fair.
vein, when a member of a subcommittee or ABAG goes and advocates for, you know, bike and pedestrian money, or they're advocating for something else, that's different than an application with a developer. And advocacy is something that is part of our role. Advocacy for our city council on behalf of the city council, on behalf of the city. So, you know, I do think some of the best practices languages, I think for an actual application process, most of it's pretty good. Some of it needs to be tweaked to allow for council participation in some of these negotiations when it's deemed appropriate.
Yes.
And that's going to be on a case-by-case basis. But, you know, to put it into, you know, best practices, which means whenever possible. Best practices doesn't mean that's always the way it is. Best practices is where you try to achieve that. It's what we consider the norm and what is supposed to happen.
So because of that, so are we talking about two separate documents here, best practices versus code of conduct?
I think some of the best practices should be in the code of conduct, that, you know, you should not have a meeting with an application, you know, with an applicant on your own, and, you know, that would be considered rogue behavior.
Could I make a suggestion? One thing that I saw in some of the things I looked at in other cities is you can have a best practices document that everyone signs, but you can reference it in the code of conduct, so you don't have to put this entire body, because some of these things are updated at times. They're amended, they're changed just according to things that come up and go, oh, we should amend that. So it can be referenced, and this could be still a separate document.
Okay, so it sounds like we need to have a workshop.
Yes. We're gonna add all those things. Every council member needs to,
Be present.
present and provide their perspective, because
Well, and I think that
Right.
the first go around with a code of conduct, and maybe we're getting off track here because best practices, code of conduct are very different. I'm sort of looking at Tom to see if he's saying I can proceed with this. It shouldn't be something that's particular to us. I mean, we will be the ones, you know, who pass it the first time. But in my hope, it's a living document that will be updated, and every subsequent person who sits at this dais will sign on this code of conduct.
Yeah.
And that it'll be something that's a living document. And, as procedures and things change on what's appropriate. I mean, at one point it would be, my first ethics class 15 years, 14 years ago for the being on the city council said, at no time shall a cell phone or computer be on the dais, because you could be getting hints from your neighbor or, playing the lotto. And so it was best practice to never have a phone or a cell phone on the dais. And nowadays, half of us are doing it on our cell phone or,
Taking
reading our
notes on our
documents on our cell phone or our computers, and we're not being accused of cheating.
Sure.
So things change.
Well, I think you mentioned a really good thing. That we all have to go through the training, the ethics training, right? To me, if you want to put together a document, use that as your foundation. And can we agree to the things that are in the ethics training that we all have to do every couple of years?
By law, we're supposed to abide by anyway.
Well, we have to abide by that.
Yeah.
So,
no, I'm saying so
yeah.
it's good to have something that you can refer to at any time.
Well, there's some things though
It's nuanced
that
sometimes.
aren't against the law, but they might be unethical, right? But they don't break the law, right? And so
Or they're gray.
right? And say we do the workshop, and you could have 3 council members say, "Hey, I really want this," and then you have 2 council members that say, "Well, that doesn't make sense. Well, why? I don't think we should be a part of that." But you have 3 council members that want it, so then that means that perhaps the other 2 have to go with that mindset that you think is important. I mean, I think we should have the workshop, but I think we should just give ourselves some flexibility and some air and use those guidelines that are found in the ethics training to help guide us.
I agree.
I think ethics play a big role in it. But I think some of it, and it's coming into the next agenda item, so I'm going to keep it for that. But
Okay, let's do that.
Can I add one thing?
Sure.
The Institute for Local Government has all kinds of suggestions about code of conduct. That's something that is another resource.
Okay.
And as we all know now from watching what's happened in our own federal government, people who do bad things can still stay in government.
Yeah, and a violation of the code of conduct is not going to get them out of government either.
Not at that level, no.
I mean,
Yeah.
That
Well,
would
even
take a
in
recall.
this thing right here, right? I mean, we'll put forth those things, but Tom has already told us that,
Somebody's
this is-
elected, they're elected.
Exactly, right? So, but, signing it, I think keeps people, on the straight and
Aware
narrow.
of what is the expectation from them. So we're going to send this back to you. We don't need to continue this item because it was just giving feedback to staff as far as what we're looking for and to the subcommittee. I think we've given them way more than they thought they were getting put on their plate, both staff and the subcommittee, and that we'll schedule a workshop at a future date and let the public know when that's going to be.
I think this is an outstanding first opportunity for the new city manager. So.
Exactly.
Gonna
Yes,
have fun.
absolutely.
Okay. Oh, that brings us to elections issues updates. We're going to start with a staff report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the Elections Subcommittee has met on several occasions, most recently on June 6th. There are 2 items that they want to bring to you tonight for consideration, and then a third item that would be require additional study. The first item has to do with a directly elected mayor, or in the alternative, language around a rotation that could be handled either through a resolution of the city council or something that was referred to the voters, or some combination of the 2. The second item is the term limits The subcommittee came up with a proposal with regards to term limits, and I'll let them kind of walk you through that and what the reasoning was. The term limits is something that would be required to send to the voters. The timing of this is still, you could still meet the schedule to put this on the November 2024 election if you choose to, or you could continue to study it and put it on a future election. I think maybe it would make sense to stop there, have that discussion, and then we can discuss the district elections, which is really more of a work in progress at this point, and we can at least brief you on where we're at with that.
So discussion.
No. Are we discussing? Sorry.
Are we just getting an update?
Madam Mayor, I would
Yes.
make the same point I made before. I think this is a full council discussion. We're missing one council member. I think the input of everyone on this council is appropriate for this.
Okay.
I think this should be continued to another meeting.
So from, I think, the perspective of the subcommittee, the hope for this evening was to see if there was an appetite to move forward with at least a strict rotation. And if so, then staff could draft up the language that would be on the ballot. And there would obviously be another opportunity to weigh in on that language on July 18th. And that conversation would determine whether it would go forward to the voters. But if that's kind of the deadline, is my understanding. So, staff would need to prepare something to start working on the language now. And then we could have the discussion at that meeting about ultimately if we wanted to put it to the voters or not at that time.
Okay. Any other questions for staff for clarification on the committee's work?
I don't have any questions, and Madison explained it perfectly. So, from the public.
Public, we do have Nancy Laxamana that would like to speak on this item.
Good evening, and I know it's been a long night for you all. We came to you 5 months ago, 45 people that signed this letter, and we asked you to do pretty much 3 things: to research these 3 items with the city staff, discuss it within the city council, and have public input and discussion. And you've done that. We appreciate that. But you need to take it to the finish line here. And if it does mean just having the staff prepare it and have it ready for July 18th, it's perfectly understandable. But we really do not want to see any more delays. It's not delays that we don't think was warranted. We believe that there was good discussion here. But these 2 issues, both term limits and district elections, are sort of like a code of conduct for an election process. And the end voice is the public. We want the public to be able to have a voice in November on these 2 very important issues. It's pretty black and white. I think the subcommittee did a fabulous job in analyzing this. You want to tweak a word or here or there, talk about a different year, totally understand that. You're going to put the menu together that is best for the public to vote on. But we really would like to see you take it to the public vote in November. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public who'd like to speak on this issue? Please come up.
Paul Busquel, Brisbane resident. I agree with everything Nancy said. I really appreciate the time and effort that the subcommittee has put towards this. And I really do believe the effort that you've put into it has come up with a possible result of what we could do to serve the community and have the community be able to have the vote on what the outcome could be within the community. I mean, I respect the council's decisions on mayor, and it's been said that, you know, while the mayor's role in this community is just more symbolic than, you know, managing the community, we understand that, but you do have a serious role, you know, each one of you in the community, and, you know, the community should be able to have the opportunity to vote for the mayor and should have the opportunity to, you know, we'll talk about districts, but have the opportunity to vote for term limits. And, you know, I understand that we have a time limit coming up, and we could get signatures like we have in the past, but we were hoping that the council would put it to the vote of the community. So that's my only request, and I'm hoping on July 18th we can come up with a plan. I know there could be a downside to what's being proposed, but you guys are making the effort to come up with those answers, so you have an understanding and the community has an understanding. So I thank you, the council, the subcommittee, and staff for the work they've done to this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public that would like to speak on this?
We have a hands raised from Michelle Salmon.
Okay, please go ahead.
Sorry I had to leave, but I do feel strongly about this. I do not think that we should have an elected mayor, as has been suggested by some other citizens. I think the way that it's been working for the last multiple decades has been fair and equitable. And also, I think that trying to force districts on a town this size and this diverse is really counterproductive. So I appreciate all the work that the council has done to bring this forth, but after reading everything, looking at all the demographics and all of that, I mean, this is just grandstanding. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other hands raised?
We have a CMF.
Excuse me?
CMF raised their hand.
Okay.
Sorry, this is Chris Blakowski. I just used my initials on Zoom. I know that that there is like a huge wave of energy behind this effort. And my concern is that what we're proposing requires an electorate that is deeply involved and far more aware than I think some of our citizens are capable of being. And this is not to denigrate them, but this is just, you know, people, they have jobs, they have families, they have demands on them. It's very hard to keep up with the specifics of city government. And so this is likely going to happen, but I do want to express a concern that it be accompanied by sufficient education so that people understand exactly what they are voting on. Because I don't think that at the moment, if we were to move into November with what people understand today, they would not know what they're voting on. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members on the?
Madam Mayor, the council received correspondence from Cher Giannini a few minutes ago, and she would like to voice her opinion on districting in Brisbane, and she thinks we have a wonderful small town community and districting is not needed. Currently, anyone is able to run for a council seat. This gives us the best chance to vote for a qualified candidate.
Thank you. And we did have one email from someone that said no.
So can I provide a point of clarification?
Should we close the public comment period at this time? Sure.
We have one more hand.
We have a hand raised from a caller.
Please go ahead.
Please go ahead, press *6 to unmute.
Hello, this is Diana, Brisbane resident. I would just encourage the council to set this aside for now. I agree with term limits, but I do think the districting and other things, we're a tiny community, and I think part of the mayoral rotation needs to be tied to the code of ethics. Thank you.
Thank you. And any other hands?
No further hand raised, Madam Mayor.
Okay, great. Well, now we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Public comments, I should say. You had a clarification you wanted to make?
Yeah, I just think for the public, like, we're not really at this point looking to, we can't make districts happen by 2024 election. It's way off. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. There's a lot of meetings that need to be had. So that is not something that we could decide on tonight, even if we wanted to. By law, there's so much more we need to do for that. I think, so from the subcommittee, you know, with respect to mayoral rotation, the public has asked for directly elected mayor. And that would likely be a 2-year seat or a 4-year seat. And in hearing, you know, that concern from the public, the subcommittee worked really hard to find a solution that addressed the concerns that we heard from the public while also trying to remain true to what this council has done since we were incorporated with respect to the mayoral rotation. And so from what I gathered from citizens is that our current standards are not robust enough to ensure that every council member gets a chance to be mayor, and because of that, they would just like to move forward with a directly elected mayor. From the examples that we've seen from many other cities, there's a lot that can happen in that scenario when you have a directly elected mayor. So with a strict rotation that is voted on by the public, it ensures that every council member gets a turn. They know when their turn is coming, and there may be a council member that is mayor that you don't particularly like, but they're just mayor for 1 year. In other scenarios, you may have somebody who's elected for 2 years or 4 years, or if it was 2 4-year terms, you're looking at 8 years. And there's a lot more risk in that scenario. And so here is a way that I think we can satisfy the public, respect what they've asked of us, but also kind of stay true to our own traditions. I think that the public has lost faith in our ability to rotate on a schedule, and by allowing them to vote on the matter ensures that we do it. And so, again, we personally may get a council member that we're not super fond of, that's mayor, but that's just how the cookie crumbles. And I would rather be in the driver's seat of this decision than letting this fester and the public writing something that is maybe not our ideal situation without having the benefit of all of the very intense research that we as a committee have done and know, and all the different examples that we've seen from cities across California of how this plays out. I think that it would make the process a lot less contentious. And that is why we are at this point now. So that's kind of a big thing for us to hopefully get into motion. I think if you wanted to tie it with a code of conduct, you know, we can always sign a code of conduct before the next election. That would be easy to do. We have enough time to work on that. We can have a workshop. The subcommittee already had established the understanding that whatever we would come up with, everyone should sign. So I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Do you want to go first? Do you want me to?
No, thank you. Every time I hear the public, I don't know who the public is, because I understand the proponents of these issues where you're coming from, and I don't necessarily disagree, but I also hear from a lot of members of the public, since this has come up, where they either are completely flummoxed and don't understand, or they say, why are we changing it? And I don't think the general public understands what these changes really mean. So when you say the public, and I understand you had a paper with 40 signatures, and I'm appreciative of that, and I honor that. But these are big changes. And I think that when I go to vote and there's a little description on a ballot, it's not giving me a big picture unless I've done my homework. And I think the rush to push things on the ballot and changes is not necessarily going to solve things. We may inherit a new set of problems. So my suggestion is more, I think we need a little more public vetting, maybe public meeting to have people have different input so that they really understand what they're getting into. I think it's just not clear.
The great thing about an election is that the public gets to weigh in, so we will know.
If they understand what they're voting on. And I've had questions coming back to me from other members of the public going, I don't get this. I don't understand it. Why is this important now? And it's not clear. And some people who think they understood, then they've told me things and I've said, that's not how it works. So to some people, it's not complex. To others, it is. And I think when you make these big changes, it needs to be very clear. We don't make these changes all the time. This has never even been proposed. I think we need to do a good, thorough vetting job. And at the point that's done, we'll know what the sentiment is, and we'll know how to present this so people understand it.
I just think like you could make that argument for anything. Measure JJ was very complex, so complex. I mean, it's going to determine the way that our city is built out for the next 2 decades. Kinder Morgan tax measure, that's complex. We're talking about racks over the barrel. I don't even still quite understand the terminology that's used in that tax measure. There's been a lot of things that we've put forward to the voters that have been complex, and they've handled it. I think, to me, actually, it's very simple. It's, do you want the decision of the mayor to be left up to the council and be in the council's discretion? Or would you like a firm rotation in which every council member gets a turn on a predetermined schedule? I think that's very simple to understand.
So let me ask a question. So Councilmember Lentz, the resolution that is the guideline right now was in 2016. And I went back and I watched the meeting. You and Madam Mayor were both on the council at that time.
So was I.
Oh, sorry. Okay. I didn't know that. And there was not a prolonged discussion, but also then I went back further, and there was a time, Councilmember Lentz, when you passed over someone in the rotation and they were not made mayor. So
I don't recall that. So if you could explain that a little bit.
well, I wasn't going to go naming names. So it was when you became mayor.
There were 2, you're right. There was two council members that were newly elected. One made a motion to appoint the other newly elected member to be the mayor pro tem, and then the other current city council member said second. And so then that's when that situation happened.
Okay, but the motions, I'm not sure I'm getting a full picture on.
Yeah, you made the motion, Clark seconded, and then we voted on it. I voted for Seppi because I felt it was appropriate because she was in line. But that's, it was the vote of the council. That's after that meeting. That's when we had the, the public meeting, but in the conference.
Okay.
Yeah.
So previous council had a situation where they did not adhere to what was at that time not locked in stone. It was just kind of, well, we have a rotation of such. And what I watched of the 2016 resolution seemed really pretty fair, the way you put that together and you signed it. And I think that there are situations maybe where a council needs to have the discretion to make a decision. And that's where I think a code of ethics becomes the cornerstone of how those decisions are made, by that code of ethics. And I think that's maybe what's lacking, is that if we have the same resolution that was put in 2016, but we had a code of ethics that gave the guidelines that we all agreed to, or how is this decision made? Very clearly, how do we approach this?
So I think it kind of comes back to what Madison just said. Do you want the council to have the discretion of choosing the mayor, or do you want the public to have that?
I think
decision?
there's times
So-
that the council knows
So
things
that's,
that.
it's a yes or no. What do you want? Do you think like that's important? Should we have the public be the final decider in that? And what's laid out here, as Madison has said, gives everyone the opportunity. Everyone is voted by the public, right? We shouldn't be sitting here and second guessing the people who vote us into office.
I don't think
right?
we're doing that.
So
I don't
that's-
think we're doing that. I think you're
well,
mischaracterizing that.
I'm just saying that here we have an opportunity to move something forward, and by giving staff direction, staff then can write up what the resolution would look like, be very clear, and then all 5 council members could then weigh in on that and say, okay, I'm willing to move this forward with the public, or no, I still have reservations about it because, and you can explain why you don't think that it should go before the voters. Because it'll be clear, because, when you get your book, your voting book, it gives you the pros, it gives you the cons, and I put my trust in the public. I think most people do read the book, and I do feel like they do, put forth the effort to be informed. And so maybe we have a difference of opinion there.
No, I think you're mischaracterizing again. I'm sorry. I'm not saying no one reads the book. I'm saying that the amount of information in the book is limited, and we all know that. So if you really want to know about an issue, you follow it. You follow it in the news, you follow it in other things available around the time of an election.
You know what I will say is that our public knows their stuff when it comes to council member elections. Our public knows the people who showed up on the scene and have been here for 5 seconds and try to run for city council, have never served on a commission or committee. They know the people who, are not in it necessarily for the right reasons. Our public is really good at being very discerning about, and there have been, it's to me, there's a lot of discussion that goes on online. There's a lot of discussion that happens with neighbors. There's candidates night. It's very well attended. People read the candidate statement. And so our public is very engaged when it comes to making that decision. And the way that I see this going is that we will end up with a directly elected mayor who will be here for 2 or 4 years. And that really starts, it just causes an interesting shift in dynamics amongst the council, amongst the community, between the city manager and the elected mayor. So to me, that's the alternative that we're looking at. I think that the other alternative is just we do things as we've always done them. And I don't know that that's something that I'm willing to risk at this point. I think for our community, you know, Councilmember Lentz has gotten passed up for city council for 3 times in a row. And
That's
whatever.
not true. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
From my perspective, Councilmember Lentz has not had the opportunity to be mayor for longer than all of us. How about that? That's a fair statement. How many years has it been? 8, 9?
8.
Okay. So, and the discussion is coming. The discussion is coming yet again in December, end of November. And yet again, we're going to sit down and we're going to determine who's going to go next. And the question about whether Cliff Lentz should serve as mayor will undoubtedly come up again. And I think that what has happened within our community over the course of these last 3 years has continued to intensify and intensify and intensify. And it's really coming to a head now as we're going into another election. And I think that it's important for us, you know, as we've had the workshop at the beginning of the year where we all said, we're going to move on, we're going to put the past in the past, we're going to be fair. And I think that this is a way that we can demonstrate that we're willing to do that. And I think that the public has asked us, and the public, I mean, yeah, it was 45 people on a petition. That's, to me, a lot of people to write to us about anything. I mean, we didn't even get like that many responses on one street of our city staff going door to door to ask about parking permits, which is a very contentious issue. So I think that it's rather simple, and I would love for us to start mending this. I think that this particular thing, not term limits, not districts, but this one issue will continue to rear its head unless we let the voters weigh in. And the voters may say, we like it exactly how it is. And I respect that, and we'll continue to do that. But they also may say something else. And I think we should just give them the opportunity. They're asking for the opportunity to just voice how they feel about this one issue. And I think we should let them do that. And it's no skin off my back, right? Like districts are a whole another ordeal. They're so complicated. They will affect us as individuals. But us just rotating annually where we all get a chance, to me, that's simple and fair. And
So I'd like to weigh in on this a little bit, because I haven't had a chance to say anything yet, and I feel like I've gotten stump speeches from everybody. You know, I think on the district elections, that's going to take a lot of time. We need to figure that out. It's very complicated. There's no discussion of where we need to go with that. It's going to be very complicated and very involved with the public.
yeah.
Term limits. It's sort of a gray area because under these rules, you'd be termed out if they were in effect when you were elected.
When I was elected, sure.
If you were new coming in, if they were in effect when you were new and coming in, you would be termed out. You would not be running again.
No, that's not true, because
You could have taken a break.
I could have taken a break for
Well-
2 years and then come back. And so
Yeah,
I've
but-
been on the council for 15. So
Yeah,
if
you
you do
would've-
the math, I'd
and-
be on the council
and-
right now.
If you chose to do that.
If you had taken time
If-
off,
yeah.
but doing what you had done, you would be termed out. And I would be too, but I'm not running again, and I'll give my word on that one. And so the problem with term limits, and I'm not saying it's a problem, is that you do lose any historical knowledge, that some of the people who have been on for a long time have. You come with a lot of historical knowledge. And if you were a new person coming in, if these had been in effect when you originally came in, you would be done right now for at least 2 years. You'd have to take a break.
Yeah, and I respect that, right? If that was the law of the land, that's what people wanted.
But it's not to say that you don't have worth that you bring to the table knowing what's going on. So I understand bringing in new people and because new people bring new ideas and growth and all those kind of things. But I'm not sure less than 12 years is the proper thing to do, because I think you're just sort of learning the ropes. You'd be one more term away had they been in effect.
I'd be in my last term.
Yeah, okay. You'd be in your last term. So three of us would, not four, but three of us would be gone if these had been in effect when we got elected.
Yeah, but it's not about us, though.
It's not about us, but I'm just using us as the example of having all new people, or having new people and some people who have some information. But again, if term limits is what the 40 people who signed the petition want, then that's not a problem for me. I've put in 15, that's enough. I've got a couple more years to go, and I'm happy to serve for the rest of them, but I've had enough of all of it.
Yeah.
So that's fine to do that. A strict mayor rotation, I am happy having, whether the voters vote on it or we re-ratify a strict rotation back into, that's stricter policy, as long as there is a code of ethics, because that is the only reason this last time, the first time that happened, was because there was an ethics violation, a code of conduct violation. But we're not going to go there.
We're not. Yeah, let's not.
We're not going to go there.
Let's not go there, because you're
and then-
right. Everyone's human.
Everybody's human. And then last term, we gave you the opportunity to be back in the rotation, and you did not want it.
Okay, you know what?
And again, we're not going to go there.
We're not.
But the rationalization that this is for any other reason than to appease something else that went on, I think that's what it is. And as long as there is a code of conduct attached to the strict rotation, where if someone is sanctioned by the FPCC, or if they're, convicted of a felony, or there's certain things that would make you, where I would not say, yeah, they deserve to be mayor. And as long as that's written into this somehow, I'd be happy to go ahead.
I don't think it needs to be written into that. I think we adopt a code of conduct internally. Because you said it's a living, breathing document. Once you have the public vote on it, that's it.
But then if we pass a public vote saying, if you were voted in after this person, you're going to be mayor after this person, the code of conduct's not going to change that. Because having those, it doesn't undo the will of the people. Tom wants to weigh in on something here.
Madam Mayor, it's 10:34.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And given, I know this could be an action item tonight, but clearly that given it's not, I think we've gone far enough testing the bounds of what's appropriate discussion and what's not tonight. So I would suggest council move on.
Okay.
So we cannot make a recommendation to staff to bring back the language for a ballot measure?
Oh, you absolutely can. I'm just saying I wouldn't put another 5 or 10 minutes into it. Other businesses being held up, and you guys have gotten pretty far afield.
I'm not ready to, personally, I'm not ready to have staff bring back language without a code of conduct.
Well, I mean, what's before us, and I appreciate you, Tom, trying to get us along here, but what's before us is an item that, as a subcommittee, we're recommending going before the voters. The item before us, that code of conduct, we'll have to do the workshop and hammer out what we think is that code of conduct, the ethic, guidelines.
Pause one moment on your thoughts. Can I get a motion to extend the meeting till 11 p.m.?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Okay, please go ahead. Sorry.
No worries. So, what we're asking, for the council is to give direction to staff to create the resolutions to put these two items before the voters. And then at the July 18th meeting, we'll have further discussion on it, and we as a full council then can give the thumbs up or the thumbs down. And so we're not saying, hey, we're moving this forward and we're going to do this. It's just, hey, let's have the language so that then you could have greater clarity with what's going before the voters. Because we know that there's a time, there are time restraints and that we have to abide by through the county. So.
Madam Mayor, I am going to sound like a broken record. We're missing a council member here. The council's had special council meetings as needed. I don't see this as impossible, but we're not getting an input from one person. And to ask staff to draft language that we don't even know exactly what it's going to say.
It's right here.
Is that what you're suggesting, that it be exactly what's here?
Absolutely.
Yes.
And what page are you talking about?
It's attachment 1A.
I think it's 50.
Yes, 50.
Oh, the extra 1A.
Yes.
Oh, so we're talking just about this rotation language.
Mm-hmm.
Because I thought you were saying all three measures to be brought back for the
And
meeting
the
on
term
the
limits.
18th.
So the term
With the
limits.
language on all three?
No, we can't do districts.
Well, but that's what he was saying.
So,
The language to be put together to
so
place three items on the ballot, and to vote on that on the 18th.
No, so there's two items to be voted on. One is the term limits. The other would be this rotation. And this is the language of the rotation so that it's, say we did go with district elections, because that could happen, right? At least if this went before the voters and the voters approved it, we wouldn't have to go back to the voters if we went to buy district elections. This covers both at-large elections and by district elections.
And where's the language for term limits?
It's part of this.
It's on page 48.
Mm-hmm.
It's just talking about what they're.
Yeah, so that language.
Certainly, I would think that if it is term limits, if this is going forward on the ballot or language to be approved at the next, that it would be full 3-year terms, not 2 plus partial. I think it should be full 3-year terms.
Wait, what? Oh, partial.
A partial would not count as one of your full terms.
We did discuss that. We said that if you were appointed, then that doesn't count. But if you were assuming, if you're running for a 2-year seat, that would be your choice.
Exactly.
Because you can determine which seat you want to run for. And so that counts.
Yeah, right. Because then you could run for 14 years if you wanted to go that route, and we decided no, that's not appropriate.
If there was a 2-year seat available, I think it should be 3 full-year terms, personally. I think it's better to have people that actually know what's going on than learning the ropes. I know for the first 3 years I was here, I didn't know a lot. I still don't know a lot.
Well, I would be willing to make that. I would be willing to. We did have a robust discussion about that. I really could have gone either way. If that's what will move it over the finish line, I think.
I mean, I'm in my 4th term. You're in your 4th term. I mean, it's not like we're doddering fools.
Sure.
So at least, I mean, I think that term limits, to me, it's very cut and dry. It's very clear it would be very clear to the public. Maybe that's something at this moment we could get consensus on whether we could have staff draft the language to be discussed.
I'm happy with that. I think we're beating a dead horse with the other item.
I'm just
I'm
going to
not
be.
willing to send it to
I'm going to
staff.
be out front and say I will abstain because I still think you're not allowing the 5th council member to have input on this
We're not voting
language.
on, we're giving direction, but I'm not willing to give direction, and an abstention is a no. So I don't think we have direction to bring that to staff back.
Okay, so we have direction to bring term limits. Am I hearing that right?
If you want.
3 full-year terms. Partial terms don't count in the calculation. Partial terms and appointed terms, I guess.
So if someone could serve 14 straight years, then you're good with that.
Yes?
Okay.
Okay. Oh, whatever. Okay.
Hasn't killed me yet.
No, I'm just,
Or
we're
you.
just, just saying, right? So, all right. Okay. So then.
I mean, we're an
yeah.
aging population, and young people don't have time to serve.
All right.
Anywho.
I would like this conversation, though, I would like this still to be on, if we're not going to have draft language, I think we should still have this conversation anyway on the 18th.
Full council.
With the full council, since that's the
We
cost
will
of the
see
delay.
what the schedule can do. I can't promise that because there's quite a few things that we've put off to that date. But if it's possible, I'm sure staff will find a way to squeeze it in.
Okay.
And then, the last item on this thing is the district elections. And I don't know if Clay, you want to walk us through this thing? Because we've gotten some pretty good data here that is new for the public.
Sure, I can do that fairly quickly. And again, there's not any recommendation to do anything at this point other than to continue on in the process. And again, this is driven by the California Voting Rights Act, so it's trying to make sure that the city of Brisbane is in compliance with that. So we did do the demographic study. It did come back with some findings. The first was that 37% of the total population of Brisbane is Asian Pacific Islander. 18% of the total population is Hispanic Latino. Asian American and Pacific Islander population is concentrated in the west side of the city off of West Hill Drive. Locally, we would refer to this as the Northeast Ridge. There are no large geographic concentrations of Latinos. There was 2 tests for districts were applied. An Asian American test with 5 council districts, assuming you maintain 5 council districts, 2 majority Asian American districts could be drawn. If you went down to 4 districts, in other words, you had a directly elected mayor, only 1 majority Asian American district could be drawn. Latino district, Latino Hispanic test, no majority district can be drawn. The maximum is a 5 district map. would be at 39%, but if that concentration is achieved, the ability to draw 2 Asian districts would be reduced to 1. So the recommendation at this point is for the subcommittee, that the subcommittee is recommending that the issue be studied further and that the demography directed to draft up to 3 alternatives for consideration and commence the public outreach process as required by the California Voting Rights Act. And as discussed in the previous city council meeting, the adoption of districts alone does not guarantee Asian American and or Latino Hispanic candidates will be successful. However, by adopting district elections consistent with the California Voting Rights Act, the city of Brisbane would be in a safe harbor for any potential litigation.
Okay. So
Questions
we
for staff?
Yeah. Questions for staff? I don't have any questions for staff. So good. Sorry.
No. Okay, public comment?
The only, and come on up, Nancy. The only other thing I would just say is that you had previously given us direction, I think, to spend up to 11,500, something like that, which was the next part of this process, which was the drawing of the maps.
Okay, thank you.
So it's probably not going to happen this year. It's probably going to have to wait till 2026. But I think this information is critical. It can provide a lot of direction for staff, for recreation, for interpretation material. I think it's really important that we continue this process, show that we are following the guidelines of the California Voter Rights Act. Yes, it could eventually change with the Baylands, but who knows when that will ever happen. I do believe that this is going to be a huge issue in 2026. So I think that the sooner we get started with the completion of the information, have public meetings ongoing, we will really be able to educate the public. There is probably, to this third point, the more, like, I'm not sure we need it or not, but it's usually from all white people saying that. I will say it directly. So I really think it's important that we do study this as completely as we should, because it will benefit us in total. Thank you.
Thank you.
What? I do have a question. Clay, the next step that you mentioned, we'll have the maps, and we'll also have quite a few public meetings, right, to educate the community about potentially moving forward.
Yeah, as I recall, there was a requirement for at least 3 public meetings, I think. So that process would take place over whatever period of time, and I agree with the speaker that, this is not a 2024 issue, this is a 2026 issue. Mm-hmm. So you do have some, time in terms of being able to do those meetings.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I have one question, if I may. Clay, on the one page with the Asian American test, and it alludes to 2 districts area outlined in green. It was unclear to me, is the area shown in yellow within the green one district, and then the area in red a second district? Or is that just alluding to the little legend at the lower half in terms of population? Because it's just strange, they made kind of what you call a dog leg. And that's something, because I was following when they did redistricting in San Mateo County, and they kind of frown a dog leg. So I thought, well, maybe that's a whole district. Do you know how they figured 2 districts in this?
I don't know specifically, and these maps, they can be, I think, a little bit confusing. They're meant simply to identify where the population is at this time, not to draw any maps.
Okay.
You have to do the public meetings first.
Oh, yeah.
They've just given us the input that they believe they can draw 2 majority Asian districts.
Yes.
And 1 Hispanic district up to 39%. But if they do that, then there would be down to 1 Asian district. So, well, as we go through the public process, I think that data and information will be laid out, and it'll be a little bit clearer to us why those, why it is that way.
Okay, thank you.
Also, I think it's important that for the district with the one that they're discussing, the Latino test, it wouldn't be a majority Latino district. It just would be the majority of the Latinos in our city would be in that district, but they still wouldn't be the majority of the population.
Correct.
Madam Mayor, we have a hands raised from Michelle Salmon.
Sure, please go ahead.
Well, you called for public comment, and I have one. After 40 plus years in direct marketing and working with demographics and population studies, et cetera, for a long time, I really would like a great deal more information on how they made the determination of who is Asian Pacific Islander, who's Hispanic, what are the criteria they're using. Are they basing it on total population, voter population? I think that there's a lot of unknowns here, and I'm sorry, I just do not. I can't put a lot of faith in demographics until I know how they're sourcing that. Are they just using census information? Is it self-reported? There's a lot of questions that I have about this, and I also can't help but feel that it is divisive. Rather than inclusive. And that breaks my heart. And it really does. Because I always thought of us as one big community. And now I feel like this is saying, no, they're different. You're different. I just get such a bad vibe from it. And I really do. And it feels like a giant step backwards to me instead of a giant step forward. But I would like to know a lot more about how the demographer made these determinations and what exactly he's basing it on, because we're making a lot of assumptions here. Thank you.
Thank you. And I will say, in response to that, when we did have the demographer here, he gave a lot of how they gather the information and what process they use to drill down into it. So the last meeting we had with the demographer did give a lot of that information. Not that I understood a lot of it, but anyway. So we're ready to move on. We don't need to give direction on this, or do you need us to? Okay.
No, we're ready.
We're just updating you.
Okay. So, city manager's report on upcoming activities.
After tomorrow afternoon, I have no idea what's going on in this town.
Good for you.
You probably don't really care.
However, my communications manager has told me that the residential zoning updates article will be on the cover of the July Star. And we will have visuals and FAQs, and we will start putting information in the blast starting next week.
Great, thank you. Countywide assignments and subcommittee reports.
I'll make this simple and fast. You basically heard the update already from both of the agenda items.
Yep.
Yeah, that's fine.
Did you have any other?
I had a commute.org meeting this morning, and we had an update from Caltrain, electrification, and a soft rollout is going to happen in August. And I believe, don't hold me to this, but I believe in September, all of the trains will be electric.
Good. Colleen. And I had nothing since our last meeting. City clerk, are there any written communications?
Council received communications and correspondences from Molina regarding districts, MC Gov regarding tobacco prevention program, Dilworth regarding election issue.
Thank you. Oral communications number 2. Are there any members of the public who'd like to speak? Seeing no hands raised, is there anyone on public?
No hands raised, Madam Mayor.
Great. Well, with that, I'm going to adjourn this meeting at 10:53 and wish Clay the best
In honor of Clay
retirement
Day.
they can have. In honor of Clay Day. We'll call it official.